Hey, I wonder if you could turn on your videos and so we can see everybody. And maybe one thing you could do is adjust your viewpoint through Zoom to gallery view. And that might also help us to have a better conversation. And so this isn't going to be a one-way knowledge dump from me, but uh, uh, better yet, an interactive experience. So we have Ahmad. Ahmad, did you want to say a few words or?
Yes, Dr. Dan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Imad Al-Darubi, a principal architectural engineer, building code consultant, also the secretary of the International Code Council Global Membership Council, your host for this remarkable webinar. I'm connecting with you all, our honorable guests from my office in Cairo, Egypt. I welcome you all on behalf of the Global Council Chairman Jeff Mitchell, the Executive Council members, and the membership. The ICC Global Membership Council, one of the 6 ICC membership council, was founded on November 2011 under the guidance and the leadership of the ICC members globally with the following goals. One is to establish the best method to gather input from global council members. Number 2, to actively listen to interested global council members and explore a vision for the future. And then to give a voice to members of the governing committee and members of the council, and to gain increasing active membership in the global membership council, and most importantly, to connect building safety professionals from outside the United States with US-based professionals who have an interest in advancing the cause of building safety globally. Membership is open to anyone with an interest in building safety, whether an International Code Council member or not. We are proud to building confidence, building community. Kindly note, we will be recording the webinar. Any questions that you have, you might put it in the chat. Immediately, we will take care of it, or we will just look at it during the Q&A session at the end. Allow me, please, to introduce Dr. Dan Vicker. It's an honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Vicker, a long-time faculty member at Florida State University. He's a senior management trainer and the student liaison for the Certified Public Manager program for the state of Florida. He was a Florida Sterling Council examiner for 9 years and currently delivers the opening preview session at the annual Sterling Conference, which is a Bouldridge-based quality award program. He also serves as a trainer, facilitator, and consultant in team building, interpersonal communications, intercultural, interracial communication, leadership, organizational development, and other management issues. Dr. Dan received his PhD in organizational communication and a master's in public administration from Florida State University, a master's in business administration from University of West Florida, and a bachelor's of science from the University of West Florida as well in systems science with an emphasis in management and accounting. He also completed the Organizational Development Leadership Certificate program at University of West Florida. On a much personal note, I am deeply humbled and filled with gratitude to introduce my teacher, mentor, and brother for the past 20 years now, Dr. Dan Vicker, sir. The audience all are yours.
You humble me, Imad. I appreciate knowing that how you feel about me. I feel the same way about you. Okay, I'm Dan. I've had a lot of experience. I'm older than the hills. I have a lot of degrees. I am educated beyond my comprehension, but there are a few things that I can remember, and I can tend to piece things together. So you guys are a community. I get the sense that you come together every so often. Sometimes it's about technical stuff, technical issues, technical training. This is a bit of a departure from that. This is about leadership and the difference between management and leadership, and how our world is changing and how we too should change with that. A guru of leadership, modern American management, I guess you could say, the quality movement, the systems movement worldwide, Edwards W. Deming, he always said that survival is not mandatory. So we can make our choices and do what we do and not make any changes at all. It's not mandatory that you survive as a leader, as in your position, or with any organization. So we all have choices, and the world around us is changing. And I am from an age cohort that is the early Gen X group, and by some argument, I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers. I'm 63 years old, and I was raised by people from the Great Generation. So if you're close to my age cohort, you were either raised by the Great Generation or you were raised by the early part of the baby boomers, which those groups had definite worldviews and mental models. And it testifies to the fact that we all use mental models that are somewhat old, because we are adopting those things that people have created before. So, with that said, some of us have mental models about what it means to be a manager and how to treat people and how we interact with people. And my parents from the Great Generation, it was always about control. In the baby boomer generation, early part, and through that, it was certainly also about control, command and control, top down, which created these big organizational structures like machine bureaucracies. Many people who work in government are working under a machine bureaucratic systemic structure, meaning you're part of it, you reinforce it, but it's generally top down and it's hierarchical, and people are reporting to others, and which kind of puts a manager, into a situation to think that they are controlling the work of others. And we don't have time for that. What I would like to share with you is evidence of the pace of change. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share with you a little PowerPoint slide that will illustrate that to you. Has anyone heard, just raise your hand, has anyone heard of Alvin Toffler and Heidi Toffler and the Third Wave? Okay, that was a book that was written in the 80s. Randy, it seems like you have knowledge of that book. And basically, they were futurists, and they were looking to the future and kind of predicting what was going to happen in the future, along with um, uh, Naisbitt in the Megatrends book that was written there too, as well, and other ways of looking at. Do you see that PowerPoint in your screen? I'm not going to evoke the PowerPoint, but can you see the picture in the words Heidi and Alvin Toffler? Okay, this is what they brought to us in the 80s. They said that there were three major social changes that occurred that are affecting us today, and that was in the 80s. That we were nomadic, and then we shifted into an agrarian world, which required a different set of values, different set of ideas about how people interact and who helps who, and how we look at the world, basically a worldview. And then came the Industrial Revolution, which changed a lot of things, values, for instance, and the way we live and how densely we live in cities as opposed to living on farms and farming communities. And then the information wave, which was beginning to give people an opportunity to interact on almost a global basis, early ages of the internet, and form groupings on the internet and make it possible for us to work at home. This is our reality today. And you see that? This is our reality today. And we were nomadic. We shifted into the agrarian way of life. That's been going on for 9,000 years. The Industrial Revolution has been going on for about 250 years. The Information Revolution, 60, globalization, 30, and social governance, social media, and new communication technologies for the last 15 years. Do you see that the world is speeding up in terms of its changes? Just open your mics and say yes. I want to hear your voices.
Yes.
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 Okay. All right.
Yep.
That was nice to hear you. Now, you'll notice there are gray shaded areas in between each of those Molitor curves as they overlap. Those are called systems breaks. They are a clash of values between the old and new, and they can be very demonstrative and or destructive, and can actually have death involved in that struggle between those values. And so each one of those is, represents a period of time in history. The between the nomadic and agrarian way of life, that was the war in Native American Indians that we had in this United States. And every country is different in terms of when these things happened and what kind of struggle ensued. In between agrarian world and the Industrial Revolution was a civil war in this country, a struggle of values. And then between information and Industrial Revolution was World War II. The information and globalization is the war on terrorism, and the info wars and all that we're experiencing right now is the systems break between globalization and social governance, where we don't have the capacity to deal with the change and the technology and those things that are happening today. This is to prove a point that we can't lead people, we can't manage in the old way. My father, if he said it once, he said it 100 times. Son, when I ask you to jump, don't ask me why. Ask me, open your mic and say it.
How high?
How high?
That's right. So we all have these notions deep within our limbic brain that lead us to interact and to act with old mental models. My father also said, son, the boss may not always be right, but the boss is always the boss. And there were some, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and it goes on and on and on, all kinds of I have 6.5 pages of these one-line sayings, right? And they're all about values, transferring values, and that creates our mental models. And so we all have this kind of old stuff in our mind, which leads us to how to interact with people and what's the best way to manage or lead. So I like to ask this question just so I can kind of see and get a feel for what your mental models are. All right. So here's the question. And I want you just to raise your hand. How many of you manage people? Okay, it's a trick question. Those of you that raise your hands, I appreciate it, because it tends to prove the point. Are we managing the actions of others? And we don't have time for that anymore. You cannot manage the actions of others. And when I have people tell me that yes, I manage people, then I equate it to herding cats. How many of you have that picture in your mind of herding cats? Do you know anyone that can do any of you have cats that you can get them to do something? The only person I've ever seen to be able to command and control cats is a guy in Key West in Mallory Square. He's got the cat show, and if you've ever seen that, it's amazing. So I just want to give you the visual of what it means to herd cats and to get you to think about, are you managing the actions of others? And if so, maybe this workshop or webinar is good for you today, and beyond. So I'm going to share my screen, and I want you to tell me if you can see the video.
Yeah.
Open the mic and tell me. I can't see you.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, great. And then I just want to make sure that you can hear the sound. So Kian, Bruliate,
That's me.
Okay. Kian, if you can just give me a thumbs up when you hear the sound, that would be good for all of us.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
Okay. All right, you get the visual? We don't have time to manage the actions of others. The mental model associated with being able to do that is a mathematical formula. It's called the machine bureaucracy. And Max Weber said that every time you have 5 to 7 people, you need a supervisor, someone to control the work of those people. Hierarchy grows. Once you have 5 to 7 units, then you need a manager to control the work of those 5 to 7 supervisors, and so forth and so on. Our world is changing at a very radical pace, but those mental models still exist, where we somehow, because we have to get work done through others, with we have all kinds of emotions that go on in our mind, and it's that responsibility that the organization gives us that tends to make us want to control or to direct. And leadership is not about that. Leadership is about letting go of control and in developing leaders and building leaders around us. And I tell people, if all you need is a self-serving reason to do this, to empower and develop leaders that can take your place when you leave, is that your organization won't find a way to promote you until there's somebody ready to take your place. And that's a self-serving reason. But as Joe Cocker said, we all get by with a little help from our friends. I think John Lennon said that too, but with a slight variation. So we want to build leaders and not to control. I want to show you another little funny video that you can laugh at, which illustrates control and management of people and managing the actions of people. And it's about productivity. Raise your hand quickly if you've ever heard of the coach John Wooden. John Wooden said, he said, do not confuse activity with productivity, which means you can be very active, you can be very busy, and you might not be producing anything that's of any value to anyone. So be clear about the difference between activity and productivity. So I'm going to play this little video. It's another chance for us to laugh before we get to something really serious here. And this is called the Terry Tate method of productivity. And this is just simply a metaphor for strict management mental model of command and control, and which many of us have working in the back of our mind. So here we go.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Hey, bud.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard! That ain't new, baby!
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice!
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
You can't hide, baby!
He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug!
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
You wanna play GMC? Well, when it's game time, it's pain time, baby! Woo!
Okay, what are your thoughts so far? Are you getting the idea that I'm trying to change your world? Open your mics and say it.
I don't believe so much change our world, Dan. I think more along the lines of changing the old way of thinking where you have to browbeat someone to get a job done. Instead, you're trying to lead us to mold people rather than force people to do it a certain way.
Yeah, so most government entities are organized around a machine bureaucratic structure, which was appropriate in 1900 as we were opening up into the full-on industrial revolution. The machine bureaucratic structure is great if you're going to be in a factory and produce things, but we have still hung on to those old ways. The world is trying to figure out, organizations all over the world is trying to figure out how to become flatter. How do you do that? How do you become flatter? So those structures are more like a divisionalized form bureaucracy, which might be a good trick and a movement in the right direction. But then a better destination is to become a professional bureaucracy where people are empowered, decisions are being made at the lowest possible level. You have higher speed of execution, and all of that can be done. We just got to get over our idea that we can't trust people to do that, or get over the internal thought that I've got to control people because they don't know enough to do it themselves. So it's a matter of changing the way we look at things, Randy. Yeah, it's not going to happen today. But I think I might be able to give you some food for thought and a way to think about that might help you. And so I'm going to send through chat quickly here a file that I want you to store and keep available to yourself. And it has to do with it's got the link to my YouTube channel, and in this YouTube channel that I have a playlist called ICCMA, and that's for you. And so any video that I'm showing is on that playlist, and you can take that playlist with you and look at it at any time you want. And you can share those videos with anyone you want. That's also a benefit. Larry sent you a document. And that document is a reflection, a form that allows you to reflect on your own viewpoint, your own kind of worldview about controlling people or building leaders, whichever direction you want to go. And so I'm going to share that through chat right here. If you'll open your chat, you can grab this folder or file, and So there it is in your chat. We're going to talk about this because this is the essence to make this transformation, to kind of think about how you stand on old school versus new school, how you stand on the pressures of change, how you stand on how to be agile, and how you stand on what risks you can take to be a leader, because it is risky. It's risky to operate as a leader within a machine bureaucracy that encourages you to be a manager, because you will be seen as somewhat rogue. So I sent that to chat. Just raise your hand if you got it. Okay, raise your hand if you looked at it this morning before we came. Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, you'll notice it's a PDF, fillable PDF, and there are two columns. You can rate yourself. That's the I, and then you can rate your organization. And so I'm going to talk my way through this in a moment. And if you haven't already rated yourself, you can rate yourself as I'm explaining each one of them. And I think this is a valuable exercise because it doesn't leave you up to interpretation. It helps you to make sure that you're understanding the words and what that transformation might be. And then you can rate yourself. And then once you rate yourself, then you can look at it and say, well, I need to do some more work in this area, in this area, in this area. So it's a starting point for us. It's also a starting point for looking at your organization. You know, this is my viewpoint of it. And how does my organization behave? What are leaders doing around me? And as a positive change agent in my culture, what can I do to help facilitate that? So I want to give you 4 statements. If you're taking notes, I'd like you to write these 4 things down. These 4 things are included in that handout that I just put through chat, but it's always a good thing to write and to think. It helps you to remember. So the first statement is, culture is a shared set of attitudes, values, and beliefs. So when people talk about culture, they're talking about those things that people in that social system share. And with regard to sharing, those things that make up culture are attitudes, values, and beliefs. Attitudes are contagious. Attitudes are choices. You make choice every day for your attitude throughout the day. Now, halfway through the day, you can have a significant emotional event and change your attitude. And we know that, you know, but it's a choice. It's a choice you make, an attitude. Now, it's contagious because people are watching, and people feed off of attitudes, you know, through communication. So the second statement is, culture is communication, and communication is culture. They're one and the same. They define each other. You know, culture, your attitudes, values, and beliefs define when you're going to talk about something, how you're going to talk about it, with what tools you're going to talk about it. You know, some people send anonymous notes or send some sort of Instagram message to break up or to start a divorce. You know, I mean, I don't understand that kind of stuff. I'm not from that school of thought where you use that kind of stuff to, you know, but nevertheless, communication is culture, culture is communication. It defines each other. And it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, how close you are to people, you know, the tilt of the head, your pentameter of pace of talking, how loud you talk, the all the stuff, the body language that's going on. Communication is culture, and culture is communication. Here's number 3. Number 3 is, you cannot not communicate. You cannot not communicate. That means you're constantly communicating. It doesn't matter if you're saying anything or not. My mother had this saying, you know, silence is golden. Or she would say, silence speaks volumes, you know, she would say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Or she would say, people are not judged by what they say, but by what they do. And so communication, you know, it is difficult at best in the English language, by the way. 80% check this next time you're talking to somebody. 80% silence is golden. Yeah, I see that. Shaman. Children are raised to be seen, not heard. Okay. That too as well. So check this next time you're talking to someone. We spend 80% of our time in conversation with others thinking about what we're going to say when they stop talking. Can you imagine? Can you just kind of guess how much communication is actually, how much meaning is being shared when you're spending 80% of your time thinking about what you're going to say before they stop talking? And so it's difficult at best. All right. So you cannot not communicate, and you're doing it all the time. And here's the fourth one. And this is the part, this fourth statement really drives home how we're involved in this. Leaders are keepers of the culture. Leaders are keepers of the culture. If anyone views you as a leader, they're going to emulate what you do. This afternoon, after this webinar, if you've told anybody you went to this webinar, they're going to think of you as a leader. Wow, they took time off of work to go to this thing to learn something. You know, they must be really, they're going to want to know. You know, they're going to want to know what you learned now, because they're watching you. Now, raise your hand if you view yourself as a leader. Okay, I'm expecting everyone to raise their hand here, because you wouldn't be a part of this association. You wouldn't be taking time out of work. You wouldn't be coming to something like this if you were not a leader. Okay, leader is not the same as a position. People in low positions can be seen as a leader. Leadership is a concept. It's not a position. And so anyone and everyone can be a leader. There was a great book called First Break All the Rules, came out a while ago, Marcus Buckingham and the Gallup organization, that said that leaders can come from all walks of life. And so leadership is a concept. Okay. I am going to play a short video by Simon Sinek. How many of you recognize that name, Simon Sinek? Raise your hand. Do you guys watch TED Talks? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The British counterpart is RSA, Royal Society of Arts. If you watch a lot of TED Talks, you might want to look at RSA videos too. They're the ones that draw a picture while the person is narrating. Well, I want to play this for you. This is Simon Sinek, and the name of this is Why Good Leaders Make You Feel Safe. And so this is about climate, it's about environment, it's about culture. Anytime you hear that word climate, environment, you're most likely talking about culture. And if you're talking about culture, then that's something that a leader sets. A leader is a keeper of a culture, which is a shared set of attitudes, values, and beliefs. So Simon Sinek is, you know, makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, and he's got some great messages. Sometimes I'm not sure that everything he says is perfect, but this has a good message to it. So do you see the video? I just need confirmation because I can't see what you're seeing. And then Kylie, if you could just give me a thumbs up when you hear the volume. Thank you.
There's a man by the name of Captain William Swenson, who recently was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on September 8th, 2009. On that day, a column of American and Afghan troops were making their way through a part of Afghanistan to help protect a group of government officials, a group of Afghan government officials who'd be meeting with some local village elders. The column came under ambush and was surrounded on 3 sides. And amongst many other things, Captain Swenson was recognized for running into live fire to rescue the wounded and pull out the dead. One of the people he rescued was a sergeant, and he and a comrade were making their way to a medevac helicopter. And what was remarkable about this day is, by sheer coincidence, one of the medevac medics happened to have a GoPro camera on his helmet and captured the whole scene on camera. It shows Captain Swenson and his comrade bringing this wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot to the neck. They put him in the helicopter, and then you see Captain Swenson bend over and give him a kiss before he turns around to rescue more. I saw this, and I thought to myself, where do people like that come from? What is that? That is some deep, deep emotion when you would want to do that. There's a love there. And I want to know, why is it that I don't have people that I work with like that? You know, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. Yeah. Right? So I asked myself, where do people like this come from? And my initial conclusion was that they're just better people. That's why they're attracted to the military. These better people are attracted to this concept of service. But that's completely wrong. What I learned is that it's the environment. And if you get the environment right, every single one of us has the capacity to do these remarkable things. And more importantly, others have that capacity too. I've had the great honor of getting to meet some of these who we would call heroes, who've put themselves and put their lives at risk to save others. And I asked them, why would you do it? Why did you do it? And they all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It's this deep sense of trust and cooperation. So trust and cooperation are really important here. The problem with concepts of trust and cooperation is that they are feelings. They're not instructions. I can't simply say to you, trust me, and you will. I can't simply instruct 2 people to cooperate, and they will. It's not how it works. It's a feeling. So where does that feeling come from? If you go back 50,000 years to the Paleolithic era, to the early days of Homo sapien, what we find is that the world was filled with danger. All of these forces working very, very hard to kill us. Nothing personal. Whether it was the weather, lack of resources, maybe a saber-toothed tiger, all of these things working to reduce our lifespan. And so we evolved into social animals, where we lived together and worked together in what I call a circle of safety, inside the tribe, where we felt like we belong. And when we felt safe amongst our own, the natural reaction was trust and cooperation. There are inherent benefits to this. It means I can fall asleep at night and trust that someone from within my tribe will watch for danger. If we don't trust each other, if I don't trust you, that means you won't watch for danger. Bad system of survival. The modern day is exactly the same thing. The world is filled with danger, things that are trying to frustrate our lives or reduce our success, reduce our opportunity for success. It could be the ups and downs of an economy, the uncertainty of the stock market. It could be a new technology that renders your business model obsolete overnight. Or it could be your competition that is sometimes trying to kill you. It's sometimes trying to put you out of business, but at the very minimum is working hard to frustrate your growth and steal your business from you. We have no control over these forces. These are a constant, and they're not going away. The only variable are the conditions inside the organization. And that's where leadership matters, because it's the leader that sets the tone. When a leader makes the choice to put the safety and lives of the people inside the organization first, to sacrifice their comforts and sacrifice the tangible results so that the people remain and feel safe and feel like they belong, remarkable things happen. I was flying on a trip, and I was witness to an incident where a passenger attempted to board before their number was called. And I watched the gate agent treat this man like he had broken the law, like a criminal. He was yelled at for attempting to board one group too soon. So I said something. I said, why do you have to treat us like cattle? Why can't you treat us like human beings? And this is exactly what she said to me. She said, sir, if I don't follow the rules, I could get in trouble or lose my job. All she was telling me is that she doesn't feel safe. All she was telling me is that she doesn't trust her leaders. The reason we like flying Southwest Airlines is not because they necessarily hire better people, it's because they don't fear their leaders. You see, if the conditions are wrong, we're forced to expend our own time and energy to protect ourselves from each other. And that inherently weakens the organization. When we feel safe inside the organization, we will naturally combine our talents and our strengths and work tirelessly to face the dangers outside and seize the opportunities. The closest analogy I can give to what a great leader is like being a parent. If you think about what being a great parent is, what do you want? What makes a great parent? We want to give our child opportunities, education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Great leaders want exactly the same thing. They want to provide their people opportunity, education, discipline when necessary, build their self-confidence, give them the opportunity to try and fail, all so that they could achieve more than we could ever imagine for ourselves. Charlie Kim, who's the CEO of a company called NextJump in New York City, a tech company, he makes the point that if you had hard times in your family, would you ever consider laying off one of your children? We would never do it. Then why do we consider laying off people inside our organization? Charlie implemented a policy of lifetime employment. If you get a job at NextJump, you cannot get fired for performance issues. In fact, if you have issues, they will coach you and they will give you support, just like we would with one of our children who happens to come home with a C from school. It's the complete opposite. This is the reason so many people have such a visceral hatred, sort of anger at some of these banking CEOs with their disproportionate salaries and bonus structures. It's not the numbers. It's that they have violated the very definition of leadership. They have violated this deep-seated social contract. We know that they allowed their people to be sacrificed so they could protect their own interests. Or worse, they sacrificed their people to protect their own interests. This is what so offends us, not the numbers. Would anybody be offended if we gave a $150 million bonus to Gandhi? How about a $250 million bonus to Mother Teresa? Do we have an issue with that? None at all. None at all. Great leaders would never sacrifice the people to save the numbers. They would sooner sacrifice the numbers to save the people. Bob Chapman, who runs a large manufacturing company in the Midwest called Barry Waymiller, in 2008, he was hit very hard by the recession, and they lost 30% of their orders overnight. Now, in a large manufacturing company, this is a big deal. And they could no longer afford their labor pool. They needed to save $10 million. So, like so many companies today, the board got together and discussed layoffs. And Bob refused. You see, Bob doesn't believe in head counts. Bob believes in heart counts. And it's much more difficult to simply reduce the heart count. And so they came up with a furlough program. Every employee from secretary to CEO was required to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They could take it any time they wanted, and they did not have to take it consecutively. But it was how Bob announced the program that mattered so much. He said, it's better that we should all suffer a little than any of us should have to suffer a lot. And morale went up. They saved $20 million. And most importantly, as would be expected, when the people feel safe and protected by the leadership in the organization, the natural reaction is to trust and cooperate. And quite spontaneously, nobody expected, people started trading with each other. Those who could afford it more would trade with those who could afford it less. People would take 5 weeks so that somebody else only had to take 3. Leadership is a choice. It is not a rank. I know many people at the senior-most levels of organizations who are absolutely not leaders. They are authorities, and we do what they say because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. And I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations who have no authority, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them, and they have chosen to look after the person to the right of them. This is what a leader is. I heard a story of some Marines who were out in theater, and as is the Marine custom, the officer ate last, and he let his men eat first. And when they were done, there was no food left for him. And when they went back out in the field, his men brought him some of their food so that he may eat. Because that's what happens. We call them leaders because they go first. We call them leaders because they take the risk before anybody else does. We call them leaders because they will choose to sacrifice so that their people may be safe and protected and so their people may gain. And when we do, the natural response is that our people will sacrifice for us. They will give us their blood and sweat and tears to see that their leader's vision comes to life. And when we ask them, why would you do that? Why would you give your blood and sweat and tears for that person? They all say the same thing. Because they would have done it for me. And isn't that the organization we would all like to work in? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, does anybody have anything to say at this point? Jason.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say really quickly that I can relate to those combat stories that he discussed on a very personal level as a combat veteran myself. I can tell you that when the blank hits the fan in a combat environment, it's not really even about leadership at that level. It's more about human instinct to protect your coworkers, so to speak, because you all depend on one another for your personal survival at that level, you know. Over here on the business side of things, there's still an instinct to protect your coworkers, not for your personal, life safety, but for the life of the company that you work for. So, we still work together to protect each other, so to speak, and to protect your subordinates, but for the life of the company or the government organization we work for. Interesting concepts that he brought up, and I can relate to that leader eating last on a very personal level. That's exactly how I operated as a military leader myself.
So
that was a good video.
These are principles that I guess, Jason, what I'm hearing you lean towards is that principles can be universal and they can apply in different settings. And, in my work with people in organizations, sometimes they fall in the trap of, well, I work for the public sector, Dan, government, the private sector can do those things, as if they're different somehow. Well, every organization is more similar than it is different. It's just people whose relationships are organized in a formal way. Every organization still has to hire people, fire people, write policy, budget, plan for the future. All the functions are the same. And principles are universal that can be used anywhere you are. And the YouTube channel that I have set up will show you, there's a video about a private sector company, Southwest Airlines. They hire for attitude and train for skill. They also give everyone the freedom to make a mistake, and they help each other out. They've got a wonderful culture. So I've included about 4 or 5 short videos on Southwest Airlines for you to see on that YouTube channel. But I've also shared with you a video by David Marquette, who I think is a transformational leader. He's retired now, but he was a naval captain, and he was a captain on a submarine, a nuclear submarine, and he was a leader on that submarine. And it's a very interesting thing. If you believe that you can't lead and you can't do these things that are wonderful when you see them in video in the public sector in a government type of organization, David Marquette was a captain in the U.S. Navy, the mother of all machine bureaucracies. And so his story is that he pushed decisions down to the lowest possible level where the information is. And it's a beautiful video. I hope you have a chance to watch that. You just got to click on it. But so there's both sides, the public sector, private sector, how these things work out. So what we're talking about is culture. And Jason, you said you identified with that culture, with those shared attitudes, values, and beliefs. And so how do you get there? So let's pull out our traditional versus transformational leadership form, where you made a choice. You rated yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe some of you haven't done that yet. And I'm going to walk through. While I'm walking through, giving you my 2 cents for each one of these, I want you to rate yourself. And when we get through with this, I'm going to send you to a breakout room. You're going to be in a breakout room with about 7 other people. And I just am going to give you about 7 minutes and 36 seconds to share with each other, what your score is and what you're thinking about. Okay. So let's take the first one. Now these are tendencies. If your tendency is to see people as source of problems and blame them for poor performance, if your tendency is to think of heads will roll, if your tendencies are to think about who are the scapegoats, who can I pin this on, then you are behaving like a traditional manager. Now let's go all the way over to the right-hand side, and I'm talking about extremes here. As a transformational leader, you may see the system as a source of problems, continuously improve system processes. So Deming said many years ago, it's his famous 85-15 rule. 85% of all problems in organizations are created by systems, not by people. Only 15% or so are created by people. So you're on a wild goose chase if your tendency is to look for people that cause problems. Okay. It's ineffectual. You're spinning your wheels. As Deming got older and more wise, he changed it to 95-5. That 95% of all problems are created by people. Systems, not people. Okay. Only 5% or so. I'm getting excited. Sorry. Only 5% of the population or employees are causes of problems. So you're looking in what did my mother say? You're sniffing up the wrong tree or something like that. You got to get yourself aligned and understand that it's not bad people. All right, let's just test it. Raise your hand if you want to do a good job. Okay, 100% of hands. I only work with people that want to do a good job. I have one of the greatest jobs on the planet. Now, do you think that's a coincidence? Well, I'm going to tell you it's not. People want to do a good job, but it's systems, it's work systems, it's things that management puts into place that stop people from doing what they know is the best thing to do for the customer. And Southwest Airlines is famous for that. They will forgive any employee for what they do as long as they're leaning towards the customer. So if you got some sort of problem, especially if it's a pattern, you look to the system. What in our system could be causing this? What in our system could be failing us? Okay, next one, emphasizes quality of outputs. If you're tracking how much work that people are doing or how many outputs they're producing, or keeping track of somehow those tasks that people do, you're again barking up the wrong tree. You should be thinking about quality of service, and that comes with organizing teams to employ the Plan to Check Act or process improvement teams to emphasize the quality. And only the customer can define what is quality, not you, not management, not any consultant. You got to ask the customer, and the customer will tell you how they want it, when they want it, in what form they want it. And so you've got to constantly query what is quality to your customers. Then rule-bound versus value-driven. Organizations that are rule-bound are strict command and control machine bureaucracies, where leaders emphasize the rule. Where Simon Sinek was saying that that employee of that airline said, sir, if I don't follow the rules and I don't do my job, I might be fired because my leadership has made me feel unsafe. We're supposed to follow rules. But those organizations that perform very much higher are those that are value driven. I have a friend here in attendance today, and we spent some time together in Cairo, Egypt. And if you ask a driver in Cairo, are there any rules? It doesn't look to me like there are any rules on this roadway. The driver will say without questioning, without stopping, no rules, no problem. So then all of a sudden you realize there are no stop signs, there are no stoplights, there are no signs on the road. It looks to the Western's viewpoint basically like the wild, wild West. Everybody is out for themselves. But in fact, everyone understands we got to get somewhere. And there are 21 million people in Cairo, and they all know they got to get somewhere, and everybody's trying to get somewhere. So they work together. They actually collaborate. They honk their horns. It sounds like a symphony, of different beeps and communication methods to say, here I come. And, and they're all kind of working together to get somewhere. And it's a value-driven system in my eyes. If you're supervising and correcting, Tom Peters long ago said, we ought not to be police or cops or naysayers, that we ought to catch people doing things right, or better yet, doing the right thing for the customer. And so coach and cheerlead, and because you're not the only one, as a matter of fact, if you're in a leadership position, a management position, and you're one layer or two layers away from people on the front line, you don't know anymore what the issues are. You don't know what the state of the art way to conduct business is anymore. So that leads to the next thing: quit meddling in people's work. Help them to master their work methods through training. Quit tampering with processes. Gather some data to help you make a fact-based decision with either the PDCA, we're using a team, or the DMAIC method. Traditional manners see turf battles as inevitable because they're fighting to build their empire. In a machine bureaucracy, the definition of who you are and the status you enjoy is based on how many people you have to tell what to do. And so you tend to try to build your empire because of that. Instead, encourage rewarding and reward cross-functional cooperation or collaboration across those boundaries that traditional managers. Have you ever heard this? Don't talk to anybody until you talk to your immediate supervisor. If you've ever heard that, that's bounding communication. And so making sure that you are improving the work processes, not making arbitrary decisions, and focusing on the outcomes, the long-term focus. I'm accelerating on down the list. Emphasizing that everyone can be a winner. HR tends sometimes to create these rewards for people that somehow one person is better than the other. That may be appropriate outside of the organization, but inside the organization, everyone should develop a sense that I'm contributing to the success of this organization, to a fact that everyone inside the organization feels like they're making that contribution, they're making a difference, and they're a winner because of membership. Quit punishing mistakes. Turn mistakes into learning opportunities. Stop issuing orders. Involve people in decision making. Peter Drucker said the challenge of the 21st century is to push decisions down to the lowest possible level. And then if you got to protect that you're always right, you got issues. You need to understand that agility comes from facing our shortcomings individually and organizationally, being able to change means that you're able to question your current wisdom. And, you know, extrinsic motivation, I think there's too much of a reliance on that. Daniel Pink, and there's a video in the YouTube channel with Daniel Pink who talks about intrinsic motivation and the value of that. So focus on those things that give people pride and that help people feel like they're making a difference. And then let go of control, build leaders through the learning process. So hopefully you have rated yourself. And if you did, yay. Now add up all of those numbers and divide by, I think it's 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 items. So add up your scores, divide by 16. I'm going to shoot you now to a breakout room. You'll be in the room with 7 other people. And I want you to share with each other your results and any kind of surprises or that you that you want to talk to. I'm just going to give you a short period of time to do this, to share with each other and to make your comments. Okay, here we go. Uh-oh, you're not gone. Here you go. Ronald, Henry, Katie, I don't know what's going on. Your internet must be slow. Hi, how are you?
We're doing good.
Okay, I just got a few minutes before I'm going to call everyone back. You guys can talk if you want. I'm going to take a really quick bio break and I'll come back and just if you'll hang on.
Sounds good.
Call everyone back. If you guys want to, you turn on your cameras. Maybe we can chat just for 1 minute before they get back. Did you have a chance to talk with your colleagues and meet with your colleagues in the breakout room, or was that weird?
No, we talked.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot
I'm
of
not
different
sure.
perspectives, because like I came from the public and private perspective, so it was good. I think it was a good diverse group.
So I've got 2 more handouts. Your elements to it. So, all right, I'm going to call everyone back and I wish I had more time. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right.
In progress.
All coming back. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I'm going to mute somebody here. Okay, there we go. All right. So, well, I hope that you were able to share with each other and hear what each other is saying about their own mental models and how they've ranked their position between traditional and transformational leadership. Hopefully, by doing this as an exercise, it will give you some food for thought about what things I might focus on or things I might work on. I have 2 other handouts that I'm going to send through chat that are similar to this. And they also ask you to rank, your either you or your organization. And one is about power. How do you view power? What are your mental models? What is your world view about power? Like we all have these mental models and the things that are going on in our head, like knowledge is power. You've probably heard that before. And some other things with regard to power. I personally don't like to have a lot of power, and that's why I do what I do. But nevertheless, we all have our viewpoint about power. So I just passed through chat an Excel spreadsheet that helps you to rate yourself on your viewpoint of power, which has some more tangible behavioral elements to it. And then if you work on those 2 things to become more transformational in your approach to leading others and in the use of your power, then the idea is that you will, over time, develop a culture that is healthy. So I passed through chat another document. It's a fillable PDF for you to assess your organizational culture. Do we have a healthy culture or an unhealthy culture? And by leading transformationally and look Simon Sinek, had talked about. And also, don't forget to look at my YouTube channel for the ICCMA playlist, because there are other videos in there that help with regard to moving in that direction. So, becoming a transformational leader is appropriate for today, and which means that we should kind of take time to examine, what do I believe? What am I doing? Am I leading people, or am I managing them? And so James Autry, another guru of leadership, a transformational leader, he says, you have to trust your people. Assume competence and then trust. Almost like a verb. Assume competence, because your system is vetting people and hiring. If you can't trust the people that have been hired, then you got a systems issue of where are you recruiting people from? What's that pool? How are you doing it? Etc. Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airlines, they have this mantra: we hire for attitude first. They look at attitude first. We hire for attitude, and then we train for skill. What do we do in the public sector? We tend to hire for skills. Do you have this stuff completed? But then we don't really get the right people, maybe. There's one way, a trend that kind of overcomes that. It's the panel interview. I would imagine that some of you are doing panel interviews, but you're still not making that transition towards hiring for attitude and then training for skill. James Autry said, eliminate silly policies. If you looked at all your policies, they probably were developed because somebody made a mistake or somebody did something wrong. And policies are usually organizational scar tissue, from the past. And so fight those silly policies that punish everybody for what a few are going to do, and they're going to do it anyway. So you got to focus on confronting those that need to be confronted, not punishing everybody. James Autry also said, create policy that's geared towards the best within us, as opposed to the worst among us. Focus your messages on the best within us rather than on the worst among us. And then, above all, create a place where people can share success and that can see that their work contributes to outcomes and that they are making a difference. I think that, most people I talk to want to make a difference. And as a leader, bridging that gap between the task, the job description that they're doing, and the outcomes the organization is trying to achieve, and showing people how they make a difference, I think is good, business for a leader. I want to give you a chance to ask some questions, but there is one video that I would like to kind of end with. It's a little YouTube video. It's about 2 minutes long, and so we'll have just a few minutes to chat. And I want to know if you can see the video. Can you see it? It says Henry Ford.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. And then I just need a thumbs up. And let's see who I can see. I think it is Michael. Italia. If you hear the noise, hold up your thumb.
Do you know how we get fulfillment? You can be happy because you did things at work. You can be proud because you did things at work. You can be excited because you had a big success at work. But you know how you feel fulfilled at work? When you do something for someone else. It's the only way we get that feeling. Do you know why the statistics say that over 90% of people don't feel fulfilled by the work they do? It's not because of the job, it's not because of the pay, it's not because of the benefits. It's because we don't help each other anymore. We sit in our cubes and we work. And anything that we turn to anybody is because we need something, we need to get something. And yet we don't put ourselves out there simply for no other reason than to help somebody else. You know what generosity is? Generosity is doing something for someone else expecting nothing in return. At no point ever. It's not an equation. It's designed to help you feel good. Because when we are in groups, when we are surrounded by people who believe what we believe, trust emerges and our very survival and progress goes up. Make it about them, not about you. The fact of the matter is 100% of customers are people. And 100% of clients are people. And 100% of employees are people. I don't care how good your product is, I don't care how good your marketing is, I don't care how good your design is. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. We are social animals, we are human beings, and our survival depends on our ability to form trusting relationships. My question is what are you doing to help the person next to you? Don't you want to wake up and go to work for the only reason that you can do something good for someone else? Wouldn't you want them to do that for you?
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Well, my coworkers expect me to go buy them things now. So.
Oh, I know. It's a Pandora's box, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that it's very cultural in the sense that, like, I took this class that was international business, and we talk about the difference between business in other countries and other places, and we talk about groupism versus individualism. And typically in the United States, unfortunately, we're focused on one. We're focused on the leader, and the leader gets all the credit, and it's not about the group. Whereas other organizations, it's about the group, and we do everything that we can to reach a goal. And that goal is won by the department and not by the head of the department. And I think that leadership is changing in the regard to where we're starting to see the thorns and the thistles of being able to enlighten the one person instead of saying the whole group is what matters, you know? And then this transformational versus traditional that we're talking about is enlightening that fact, right? We're talking about changing from this belief that, you know, it's the greater I versus the greater good.
Yes. So there are basically three cultures around the world. In the West, we are a culture of autonomy, and we ask what's in it for me. In the Middle East, it's what's in it for my family. And in the Far East, it's what's in it for whatever group I belong to in the moment. And that's usually an organization and a social group. And so in the Far East, people don't like to be singled out, you know, and in the Far West where we're at, you know, we've got Madonna. You got to express yourself, you know, and so there's just everybody's different, and I think that's what makes the world go round. What do you think, Allison?
I mean, I do enjoy the differences with everyone, and I do work for an organization that is more on that transformational side. I will say one of the things that stood out when I did this survey and watching that video too is I think there has been this swing towards this, like, especially in local government, nonprofits, things that you see like with teachers, this swing towards, oh, you should believe in your job and that should be enough, and you don't have to be compensated at like even a fair or close to market rate. Now, I work for a very well-off community, and we're very competitively paid, but like I see a lot of time spent on some of these other resources, especially at local government. And I do think there does need to be some acknowledgement of like extrinsic motivation, like money does substantially matter.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a hard conversation with our HR departments that are like,
it
oh,
is.
well, we just need to offer this other thing, or like,
And
this
it's a
should have value.
distortion. It's a distortion, you know, and not everybody is in a good place for them. Many people find themselves not in a good place, and we got to make decisions about that, you know. And I think that what has accelerated with that is the event of COVID. It is still redefining what it means to be an employee and where people are going to work, and what kind of work life that they expect to have. You know, the baby boomers always talked about work-life balance, but the Generation Zs are talking about work-life blend. And so the boundaries of work and life are blurred for this newer generation. And if they don't find themselves in a good place, they're moving on, which is a real challenge for you as a leader and a manager fulfilling positions. And can you get someone to come in for an interview when they scheduled it, you know? and does the conversation evolve around, can I work at home, by the way, and in 2 weeks I got to take a vacation, and you know, so it's a real challenge. We're living in a period of time that's rapidly changing, and it's not going to slow down. Thank you for that comment, Allison. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? Anybody have any kernels of wisdom for me?